do that all the time. There's nothing new about that. But at the time, it was just like weird because players would pretty much just start massing up units once they hit a certain point. Just start making the units and never stop making the units. But it's just this alternation. And time for the WCG Grand Final, I was actually in Group E. Yeah, actually, hold on, stay right here. So I'm going over to my closet right now because I think I actually still have these little things. Yeah, dude, guys, keep everything. Keep every single thing that you get. See, here's my bib. I was in the Group E at the WCG Grand Finals. In my group, it was the group of death again. It was Methos PG, the famous German Zerg player. It was Helgos, the famous Brazilian Terran player, who's also very strong at random. And Liquid Drone, who played random, but in tournaments, he would just pick whatever race was the best at that map in the time. And I was against these players, and I was just like, oh, God, you know. But my brother, the game was in San Francisco, so I could still get cell phone reception. My brother called me every day, and before every game I would call him, and I would say, Nick, I have to play Methos. And he would go, don't worry, man, you got this. And I think the general theme in all my tournaments is that I'm very shaken in like the first game of the tournament. Or in the first, even in a best of three, I generally lose the first game. If I do win the best of three, I end up losing the first one and then winning the next two. That's sort of story of my life. So I played against Methos PG, and for some reason, I got so shaken up that I was in this huge area of computers. Every famous player I'd ever met, every famous player I'd ever heard of from around the world was there. It wasn't just America, it was like the whole world. I mean, Mondragon, Death Shaman from Romania, who you guys should know because he's pretty awesome. Liquid Drone, the famous Canadian players, like Testy was there. I mean, the Koreans were there. Zelos, my hero, was there. And I was just so shaken up that I abandoned my game plan against Methos. For no reason. I just completely abandoned my game plan. I went Hydralisks and Zerg vs. Zerg. Which nowadays, you know, I love Hydras and Zerg vs. Zerg. But then I never practiced it, and I just locked up. And I called my brother, and I was like, okay, Nick, I'm already down 0-1. I have 2 more games I gotta play against Helgos and Eriador. Eriador is Liquid Drone, same person. And I was just like, oh, God. He's like, no, man, remember, dude, you knocked out Froz at the finals, man. You knocked out Sadis. You knocked out Artosis, man. You got this. Endlessly supportive of me. And because he was a StarCraft player, and because we talked so much, he could just calm me down and get me focused and get me in the zone. And I managed to win my next game against Hellghost. It was like a pretty dramatic game, but I managed to win. And I managed to win my next game against Liquid Drone on my best map, and I just stuck to my game plan and crisply executed it. And all of a sudden, I was first in the group. I was first. I was 2-1, Liquid Drone was 2-1, and Methos and Helgos both went 1-2. So I was like, oh my God, I'm in the round of 16. And I had to play Dark Caleb, who's a very famous Czech player. I played a Zerg vs. Zerg, and I won that 2-0. And then all of a sudden, I had to play against Zelos. Now, that is awesome for 2 reasons. Because Zelos was the Korean who eventually went on to win that tournament. And I'm not going to lie, when you're in a StarCraft tournament, and you're just a random, basically a newbie from America. I mean, especially compared to like the caliber of player there, I was just not, top of the pack. If you get faced against Zelos, that's the person you want to lose to, man. Oh, that's so great for we little measly foreigners who have no pro scene. Oh yeah, I lost to the Korean. No big deal. You don't want to lose to someone, who's also a foreigner or anything like that. So he demolished me, and I actually did a review of one of the games I played against him in the Day9 Daily. But so I ended up getting eliminated, and I was a little bit bitter, but it just went so well because I got to go back to school, and this is when I'm a freshman in college, and I get to tell everyone, guys, I went to the StarCraft World Finals, and I lost to the Korean who won it all. Easy out for me, right? Easiest thing in the world. If I lost to someone, with an embarrassing name. For instance, Rekral in the World Cyber Games USA final, the one that Froz, Artosis, and I got first, second, third. Rekral was eliminated in the loser's bracket by Monkey Balls, was the guy's name. Now, if you're in a tournament and you have to go home, and your mom's like, oh, honey, how'd the tournament go? Oh, it went crappy. You got eliminated by some random guy in the loser's bracket. Well, who was it? It was Monkey Balls, it just damages the reputation of everything you've ever done in your life, So I'm delighted that, managed to lose to Zelos in that final. What was I talking about? I need to get my notebook out once again. I put it aside to go get that awesome little bib, because once again I keep absolutely everything. Still, I at this point I've had no wins in my entire life, and I remember for the 2005 final. So there was like this online ladder that there's a qualifier for, and I mean it's around this time that my family really started to just gel around StarCraft. Like anytime we had a tournament, Mom would ask for updates. Nick and I would constantly call each other, and anytime anyone asked me for my favorite memory or one of my favorite memories, I tell them the story of how my brother qualified for the 2005 final. Because I qualified online, so I was already seeded, right? And Nick had to drive down to Texas for this tournament. And so it was just him, right? It wasn't anything dumb like we both had to go to the same qualifier and one of us ended up winning. We went to different places. And at this qualifier, Noni was actually there. Noni is really, really good now. And it was pretty damn good back then as well. And my brother had been practicing his Protoss versus Protoss. And, oh my god, I remember he drove down there. He drove 17 hours to get to this Texas qualifier. And he'd been practicing so hard. Oh my god, he killed himself practicing for that tournament. Just endless Protoss versus Protosses against random players, against practice partners, against everyone that he could find. And again, for any of you who tuned in, this is my brother Tasteless, who's the Storm Observer for GOM TV. He practiced so hard for that tournament, and he drove all the way down there, and Noni was knocked into the loser's bracket by a Zerg player early on, so Nick was like, oh my god, yes, I have a free ride to get to the finals. So that's what happens. They get all the way to the finals. We're calling each other. He's updating me. He's like, dude, I got this. Noni was knocked into the loser's bracket, but Noni came all the way up, losing first round, came all the way through the loser's bracket. And when they got to the finals, the way that it worked was that Nick had to win 1 best of 5, and Noni had to win 2 best of 5s. So Nick says, "All right, man. All right, I'm feeling a little nervous." I was like, "Don't worry, man. It's cool. You got this. You can do this, man. You've been training. Just stick to what you know." And he plays the series, and he calls me back 20 minutes later, and he says, "Sean, I got 3-0'd. He raped me. It wasn't even close. It was totally one-sided. He 3-0'd me." And he said, "Sean, Sean, I drove all the way out here and I'm going to lose. I tried so hard and I'm just going to lose here." And I felt so bad. He still had a best of 5 left. And I talked to him for 45 minutes. He actually asked the tourney directors if he could have 5 minutes. But he just stayed on the phone with me for 45 minutes. And I calmed him down. I was just like, don't worry. I told him, he got rushed all 3 games, so it's obviously going to feel worse. But you just have to... God, I just get so emotional about this, right? I was like, you just stick to what you know, right? And it was loser picks the map, so he was allowed to pick the first map, so he chose Estrella, which was a really obnoxious island map. Because for some reason, WCG keeps throwing in island maps into the series. They just had the hook on it. I don't know, but it was in there, so Nick chooses Estrella, and he wins the first game. And I'm like, yes, and he had a brilliant build constructed on Estrella. I mean, to this day when I go back and I look at that, brilliant. Weirdly timing when he gets his range upgrade for an island map as Protoss, but it finishes at just the right time to deal with this one Dark Templar drop, and this one time when his opponents will get observers in, he can snipe it with the range before it gets in. Building placement thought out, genius. He executes it, he wins. And there's this guy who, another friend I met through StarCraft named Roger Dodger. I think his real name was Matt, but we called him Roger. So Roger Dodger was messaging me via BattleNet. There was no way to get a hold of him. So he said Nick lost the next game, and it was a really one-sided game. And he said, but Nick's choosing Estrella again. Nick chooses Estrella, he wins. They're 2-1.